There's a secret about you that you don't even want to admit to yourself. It's not your weakness, it's not your failures. It's your hidden power. And Jung said this secret lives in the very place you're afraid to look. It lives in the part of you you've been taught to silence, the part you hide behind smiles and small talk, the part you call shame. And here's the truth: sex is the key to it all. I know what you're thinking. Sex. Listen closely. Jung didn't mean it the way society talks about it. He meant that your sexuality, your attractions, your forbidden thoughts are not random or dirty. They are mirrors. They show you what you crave, what you fear, what you deny. And the strangest part, the more you pretend not to see them, the more they control you. How many people live like this? The husband scrolling through a screen late at night, the woman who can't stop thinking about someone she shouldn't, the respectable leader with a secret life. We point fingers when their secrets come out, but Jung would say, they're just mirrors of us. Every desire we bury doesn't die. It grows in the dark. It becomes the quiet voice that shapes your choices. It's why you stay in a relationship that's empty. It's why you chase someone who isn't good for you. It's why sometimes you feel split in two, the person the world sees and the person you really are. Jung worked with people who were brilliant, disciplined, even admired. But behind closed doors, many were at war with themselves. One man told Jung he felt like he was living two lives, one respectable, one secret. The more he tried to hide it, the more it owned him. And Jung told him something shocking: stop running. Turn around and look. The thing you fear is trying to teach you. A sex desire, attraction, these things terrify us because they make us feel exposed. They strip away the polite version of ourselves. But Jung's message was clear: what you repress will direct your life and you'll call it fate. So the question is not whether you have hidden desires. The question is, are you brave enough to look at them before they destroy your peace? Imagine this: every unexplained attraction, every secret fantasy, every forbidden thought is a thread. If you follow that thread, it will lead you to the parts of your story you've left unfinished. Maybe it's a wound from childhood. Maybe it's a part of you that wants to feel alive again. Maybe it's the voice inside saying, I want more. You can ignore it, you can bury it, but it's there and it will keep speaking. And here's what makes this hook impossible to ignore: your shadow is not trying to ruin you. It's trying to complete you. The energy you call lust, the fantasies you fear, the secrets you hide, they're not just about pleasure. They're about longing to be seen, longing to be whole. And if you can be honest about them, they lose their power. So before you look away, remember this: the thing you pretend not to see is already shaping your life. Jung would say that if you dare to face it, you won't just free yourself from shame, you'll unlock creativity, passion, and clarity you didn't know existed. And that's why this conversation is not about morality, it's about power. The power to own your story before it owns you. There's a strange thing about the human mind. We believe we know ourselves. We think we are honest with ourselves. But Jung warned us about a dangerous illusion: the things we pretend not to see never disappear. They hide, they grow, and they shape our lives in ways we can't even imagine. And nowhere is this more powerful, more electric, more terrifying than when it comes to sexuality. Because sex is not just physical. It's the hidden language of desire, fear, shame. It's where your shadow lives. Think about it. How many people walk around carrying secrets? Not just secrets they keep from others, but secrets they keep from themselves. Jung said the things you repress are like children locked in a basement. They scream until one day they break free. That hidden attraction you deny, that fantasy you shame yourself for, that resentment you bury, it's all energy. Energy that doesn't die, it mutates. It leaks into your relationships, into your choices, into your moods. And the more you pretend not to see it, the more control it has over you. I want to tell you a story. Years ago, Jung worked with a man who appeared disciplined, controlled, highly respected in his community. But behind the facade, he was living two lives, one of order and one of secret chaos. He couldn't understand why he was sabotaging his marriage, why his work was losing meaning, why he felt split in two. Jung didn't tell him to suppress those urges, he told him to look directly at them. Why? Because what you refuse to look at will own you. And here's the uncomfortable truth: sex is rarely about sex. It's about power, intimacy, fear of rejection, a longing to be seen. It's about the parts of yourself you don't know how to integrate. And when you pretend not to see these things, when you bury them in shame, they find a way to surface. Sometimes through anger, sometimes through obsession, sometimes through quiet self-destruction. Jung called this the shadow, and the shadow loves secrecy. It thrives in the dark. But here's what most people never understand. The moment you look at it, the moment you name it, it begins to lose its power. And the people who dare to confront it, those are the ones who live fully, love deeply, and create without fear. So let me ask you, what are you pretending not to see? What do you feel when your mind is quiet and no one's around? Because Jung would tell you, the key to your wholeness, the key to your healing, and yes, even the key to your sexual energy, is hidden exactly where you refuse to look. Imagine walking into a room where the air feels heavy, where the moment you smile, someone else's eyes brighten, but yours start to dim. You do not say a word, yet you feel yourself giving away something unseen. You leave that place more tired, more restless, and you cannot explain why. This is not just coincidence. This is the silent feeding that happens when an empath, someone whose heart is open and light is visible, steps too close to those who cannot create their own warmth. They see your glow, they sense your softness, and without you even knowing, they begin to drink from it. Carl Jung once warned that where there is light, there will always be shadows waiting. And if you are the light, you must understand that some are not here to love you. They are here to consume you. Most empaths believe their compassion is a gift, and it is. But it is also the very door through which others can quietly enter and take what was never theirs. Have you ever noticed that after being around certain people, you feel restless, anxious, or even guilty, while they seem lighter, calmer, even happier? That is not an accident. That is an exchange of energy where you gave and they only received. Jung believed that the unconscious is always at work, pulling us toward what we do not see. And the truth is, many people are unconsciously drawn to empaths, not because they admire their kindness, but because they crave their light. You must hear this final warning. If you do not guard your energy, others will use you as their endless supply. An empath walks through life like a candle in a dark cave. The flame is not just seen, it is felt. The flame is not just warmth, it is life to those who live in coldness. But what happens when too many gather around the candle? The wax melts faster. The flame flickers weaker. And before the empath knows it, the light that once lit the whole cave has burned itself out. Jung said that nothing affects us more deeply than what we do not acknowledge in ourselves. And for empaths, the danger is not simply others feeding on their light. It is the silence in which they let it happen. Because empaths often believe it is their role to give, they do not question when they feel drained. They mistake depletion for love. They confuse exhaustion with service. They carry burdens that were never meant for them. Think back to the people in your life who left you feeling smaller after every encounter. Maybe it was a friend who always came to you with their problems, but never asked about yours. Maybe it was a family member who only noticed you when they needed comfort. Maybe it was a partner who loved your kindness, but did nothing to protect it. These are not just ordinary interactions. These are signs of a hidden exchange. Jung would say the shadow in them, the part they do not want to face, recognizes your light and clings to it. And while you believe you are helping, you may actually be feeding what is unhealed in them, while starving what is alive in you. The final warning is simple yet difficult. Your light is not infinite if you do not protect it. Many empaths walk through life without boundaries, thinking their love is enough to heal everyone. But Jung taught that wholeness is not about giving yourself away. It is about integrating what is within. That means learning to know your own shadow, to know where your kindness ends and where self-betrayal begins. Because every time you say yes when your heart says no, you hand over another piece of your energy. Every time you absorb someone else's pain without releasing it, you make yourself weaker. Every time you stay silent when someone crosses your limits, you allow them to feed on your spirit. Picture a woman who gives endlessly to her partner. She listens to his struggles, comforts his fears, heals his anger, but when she is in pain, he cannot sit in silence with her. She excuses it, telling herself that he is not as sensitive, that she is stronger. But over months and years, she begins to feel smaller, less alive, less connected to herself. He feels better around her, but she feels worse. This is the unseen exchange. Or imagine a man who is always the friend everyone calls at midnight. He listens, he rescues, he fixes. But when he needs someone, the phone is quiet. He tells himself he doesn't need anyone. yet deep down, he knows he is emptying himself for people who will never refill him. This is the warning for empaths. Not everyone who takes from you is a friend. Not everyone who smiles at you cares for you. Not everyone who reaches for you is reaching in love. Jung spoke often about individuation, the process of becoming whole, of uniting the conscious and unconscious, of standing firmly in one's own truth. For the empath, individuation is not just about being kind, it is about learning to carry kindness with strength. Because without strength, kindness is only weakness dressed in soft clothes. The final warning is this: if you do not learn to protect your light, you will not only burn out, you will become prey to those who survive by draining others. Some people do not want to heal. Some people do not want to grow. They want your light because it fills the hole they refuse to face in themselves. And as long as you let them, they will keep coming back hungrier every time. The empath often carries an old wound that makes them believe love is proven by sacrifice. Maybe as a child, you had to be the one who held peace in the family. Maybe you learned early that your value came from soothing others. Maybe you felt unseen unless you were useful. And now, as an adult, you attract those who mirror that same pattern. Jung would call this the repetition of archetypes, the inner script playing itself out again and again until it is made conscious. You think you are simply being good, but what you are really doing is repeating an old story. And the longer you repeat it, the more drained you become. But here is the truth: your light was never meant to be consumed. Your light was meant to guide. There is a difference. A candle can light another candle without losing itself. But if it lets the wind of others consume it, it dies. As an empath, your role is not to carry everyone. Your role is to shine so clearly that those who are ready to awaken can see their own path. The ones who only want to feed will either fall away or be forced to face their own darkness when you stop giving them your flame. This is why boundaries are sacred. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They allow love in, but they keep harm out. They protect your gift so it can keep burning. So what does this mean in practice? It means noticing the signs. When you leave a conversation feeling heavy instead of light, pay attention. When you find yourself always giving, always listening, always carrying, but rarely receiving, that is not balance. That is feeding. When you realize you are excusing bad behavior because you feel guilty saying no, you are giving your power away. The final warning to empaths is not just about protecting yourself from others. It is about protecting yourself from the part of you that does not believe you deserve protection. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For the empath, this means until you see the pattern of giving away your light, you will keep repeating it. You will keep attracting those who feed because your unconscious has not yet learned that love does not mean depletion. True love, true connection does not drain, it expands. The people who truly value you will not take until you are empty. They will meet you with their own light. Think of the times you felt alive when you were around people who made you brighter instead of smaller. That is the difference. Those moments are proof that your light was meant to be shared, not stolen. Those are the relationships you must seek, the spaces you must protect, the truth you must hold. Your empathy is not your weakness. It is your strength. But strength must be guarded. The world will always have shadows. Jung knew that light attracts both beauty and darkness. If you are an empath, you cannot avoid this truth, but you can choose to guard your flame so that it burns for years instead of being snuffed out too soon. And so I say again, this is your final warning. Not everyone who smiles at you is safe. Not everyone who cries to you deserves your comfort. Not everyone who reaches for your hand deserves your soul. Protect your light. Protect it not by closing your heart, but by learning to say no. Protect it not by running from the world, but by learning to see who comes to take and who comes to give. Protect it not by dimming yourself, but by standing so fully in your truth that only those who carry their own light can walk beside you. Because in the end, the world does not need empaths who are exhausted, broken, and drained. The world needs empaths who are alive, awake, and whole. And the only way to stay whole is to remember, your light is sacred, and it was never meant to be food for those who refuse to create their own. This is the warning Jung would whisper to you now. Guard your light, because if you lose it, you lose yourself. And you were never here to disappear, you were here to shine. When Jung spoke about the shadow, he wasn't talking about something evil or dirty. He was talking about the parts of you that you've been taught to push away. Think about how early this starts. A child is curious, open, alive to every sensation. But then come the rules, the judgments, the shaming words. Don't do that, that's bad, that's dirty. And so, pieces of your natural self get locked away. They don't disappear. They wait. They wait for the day when your guard is down. They appear in the form of attraction you can't explain, in the fantasies that shock you, in the sudden resentment or jealousy you feel toward someone. Jung used to say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is why so many people feel trapped in patterns they don't understand. You may think you're choosing your relationships, but many times your shadow is choosing them for you. Why do we often want the very thing we know is bad for us? Why are we drawn to people who mirror the wounds we haven't healed? It's because your shadow is trying to complete a story you've left unfinished. There was a woman Jung once worked with who kept falling in love with unavailable men, married, distant, emotionally cold. On the surface, she hated this about herself. She blamed her bad luck, she blamed the men, she even blamed God. But Jung asked her a question no one else had asked. What part of yourself do these men represent? What are you chasing that you've denied yourself? At first, she resisted. She insisted she just wanted love. But slowly, she realized she was drawn to men who couldn't choose her because deep down, she had never chosen herself. She had a hidden belief, born in childhood, that she was unworthy of full attention. Her desire wasn't for the man, it was for the wound to be healed. This is the power of what we pretend not to see: sexuality, attraction, intimacy. They are mirrors. They show you what you crave and what you fear. Sometimes you're not attracted to the person, you're attracted to the feeling they trigger in you. And when you deny this, when you suppress it, it doesn't go away. It grows. It leaks into other areas of life. Maybe you start resenting your partner. Maybe you become emotionally distant. Maybe you turn to distractions, work, food, substances, to keep the noise down. Jung believed that the energy of sex is creative energy. It's not just about the act, it's about life force, passion, drive. When you repress it, you repress your creativity. That's why some of the greatest artists, leaders, and thinkers seem to have a certain fire, a rawness. They weren't necessarily perfect or moral by society's standards, but they had learned to integrate their shadow. They didn't run from it, they used it. Look around you. How many lives are quietly breaking because people are pretending not to see? The affair that isn't about lust but about a hunger to feel alive. The addiction that isn't about pleasure but about numbing pain. The anger that isn't about the situation but about an unspoken wound. And yet we keep wearing masks. We keep performing. We keep saying, "I'm fine," when our souls are screaming. Jung's work is not about shame, it's about courage. The courage to sit with your own thoughts without distraction. The courage to ask yourself uncomfortable questions. The courage to face the shadow without flinching. And if sex is the key, it's because it's where we are most vulnerable, most exposed, most honest. It's where love, fear, shame, and longing meet. So here's the challenge. Stop pretending. Stop avoiding the mirror. Look at your relationships and ask, what am I seeking? What am I afraid of? What am I hiding? Because until you do, the shadow will keep speaking, but in whispers you can't understand, and those whispers will turn into patterns. Patterns will turn into walls, and walls will turn into loneliness. But the moment you look, the moment you allow yourself to see without judgment, something changes. What was shameful becomes human. What was dark becomes a source of light. What was hidden becomes your power. What makes this even more fascinating is that the shadow doesn't always come dressed as something dark or obvious. Sometimes it comes dressed as virtue. Think about the people who present themselves as the most disciplined, the most religious, the most moral. Often, Jung found that behind that carefully polished surface was a storm. The stricter the cage, the louder the prisoner inside. Why? Because anything you repress too harshly eventually fights for expression. Have you ever wondered why scandals shock us so much? A respected leader, a spiritual teacher, a devoted family man suddenly exposed in some secret behavior. People say, how could this happen? He seemed so good, so upright. Jung would say it was always there, unseen, unacknowledged, demanding attention. The more we pretend not to see something, the more violently it demands to be seen. That's why the first step to freedom is honesty, not with the world, but with yourself. Jung believed that sexuality, when hidden and repressed, doesn't disappear. It changes shape. It may become obsession, it may become judgment of others. It may become quiet bitterness, or it may explode in risky behavior. It's like water behind a dam. If you don't create a channel for it, it will eventually break through and flood everything. Think about relationships. How many marriages collapse? Not because of lack of love, but because of lack of honesty. Two people living under the same roof, but pretending not to see each other's true selves. The woman sensing something missing, but afraid to speak. The man burying his dissatisfaction behind work, behind screens, behind silence. And beneath it all, an unspoken desire to be known, to be free, to feel alive again. Jung would tell you that this desire is not wrong. It's a signpost. It's showing you the areas of your life where you've become numb, where you've stopped looking. There's a reason Jung emphasized integration. Integration doesn't mean acting on every impulse. It means acknowledging it. It means saying, this is part of me. This is my shadow. I won't let it rule me, but I also won't deny it, because denial creates blindness, and blindness creates danger. One of Jung's most striking ideas was that your attractions often point to something you need to learn about yourself. That person who unsettles you, who makes your pulse quicken, who stirs something you can't explain. That's not random. Your psyche is speaking. Sometimes it's pointing to qualities you've buried. Sometimes it's reflecting a need you haven't met. Sometimes it's mirroring your wounds. But always, it's information. And here's the part most people miss. When you refuse to explore that information, you lose power. You become a stranger to yourself. You might follow rules, keep routines, live quietly. But inside, there's a fire that never burns, a life half-lived. And eventually that fire turns to smoke, to resentment, to boredom. Jung knew something our modern world often forgets. See, the most dangerous thing is not the darkness itself. It's the refusal to see it. A man who knows his shadow can choose. A woman who knows her shadow can stand in her power. But the one who denies it is led by it like a puppet. Now think about your own life. What is the thing you pretend not to see? Maybe it's a longing you've buried. Maybe it's a part of your past you never faced. Maybe it's a desire that scares you, a truth that feels too heavy, or a dream you told yourself you're not allowed to have. Every time you push it away, you think you're protecting yourself, but really you're feeding it. Because whatever you resist grows stronger. So how do you begin? Jung would say, you begin by being curious instead of judgmental. You begin by writing down the things you think about when no one's watching. You begin by noticing your reactions. Who makes you jealous? Who makes you angry? Who makes you feel alive? Those reactions are not accidents, they're messages. And let's return to sex, because Jung insisted sexuality is a mirror of the soul. It's not just about pleasure, it's about identity, about power, about vulnerability. Who you choose, who you avoid, what excites you, what scares you. It all tells a story. If you pretend not to see it, you miss the chance to write your own ending. The bravest thing you will ever do is turn on the light in the room you've kept locked. Because when you do, you realize something incredible. What you feared was never as big as you thought. The shadow becomes smaller. The shame becomes softer. The desires become teachers instead of threats. And for the first time, you can love without fear, create without guilt, and live without pretending. So I'll ask you again, what are you pretending not to see? Because Jung would say your freedom, your power, and even your deepest joy are waiting exactly there, in the place you've been afraid to look.